Next section we have here is the compressor limiter section. This section is pretty cool. It works much in the same way as the gate we talked about, except in reverse. Instead of limiting sounds to come through only if they're loud enough, the compressor is going to limit how loud sounds are that come through. Now, the way we set the gate was turning up levels and saying that sounds had to be louder than that amount to come through. The way we work a compressor is we come down on levels. This is how loud something is coming up. We're going to turn the compressor down until it starts affecting that signal. So think about the compressor as, we'll think about its heights too. We'll think about it as a doorway. Let's say there's a doorway that is 10 foot tall, and everyone that's 10 foot tall can come through that doorway unaffected. So they're walking in, nothing's happening to them, they're staying just as loud as they were. But say somebody comes to that 10 foot doorway and they are 15 foot tall. So they come in, so what do? They're going to have to duck down. So what happens is 10 foot of them passes through unaffected, and the other 5 feet that they're over the limit, something has to happen to that. So what we do from there is what this here is called the ratio. We got 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 7 to 1, 1 to 1, and this varies this ratio. And this is the ratio of what you're going to compress by. So what you're compressing is however much audio is over the limit that you set. So say we had a 10 foot door, and the person, let's say for easy math, let's say they're 20 foot tall. 10 foot door to 20 foot tall. 10 foot of their height is coming through unaffected. 10 foot of their height is over the limit of the door set. So if we set the ratio 2 to 1, 10 foot's coming through unaffected, the other 10 foot is being compressed 2 to 1. So the other 10 foot is being turned into 5 feet. So their total height after they come through the door is going to be 15 foot. But they started out 20 foot, but after they went through the compressor and the part that went over the limit was compressed 2 to 1, it changed them to 15 foot. Now if we did it 3 to 1 and there were 20 foot coming through, that extra 10 feet is going to get compressed 3 to 1. So when they had come through, they're going to be about 13.3 foot tall for total height. Now just translate that to volume and you'll understand what I'm talking about. Now what this is helpful for is a bunch of things, but let's say a prime example that most people can understand is your pastor preaching. When he's preaching in a normal tone, normal voice, he's coming up, say this loud, and we're going to adjust it so that the gain reduction meter over here, that when he's talking, let's see if I can do this here. So I'm talking here. So talk. See, the gain reduction is not coming on. I'm going to turn down the compressor. I'm keeping on turning this down. Talk. Now this is starting to compress. This is reducing. This red line is showing how much the compressor is reducing, compressing the signal. So if I turn the compressor way down here, it's going to start compressing more and more of my voice. If I turn it up, it's going to, if I back off on the compressor, it's going to compress less. Now the way I set this for like a pastor speaking is when he's speaking in his normal voice, I turn it so that the gain reduction is just coming on. We're just getting a little bit of gain reduction, about 4 decibels there. So I'm going to have it around there, and then what this is going to do then for the ratio, with somebody speaking, usually maybe about 3 to 1, I'm going to set it at. And so when he's speaking, it's going to be just barely compressing, but if he gets really loud and excited, it's going to crank that volume down so that it's not blaring coming out of the speakers, and people don't have to rush and plug their ears because they're getting their face melted off by the pastor. So you use it for that. Now you also use a compressor to make things louder or smoother in the mix. Bass guitars love to compress really heavily. Bass guitar, you want it really nice and smooth. You want playback that's even and consistent. You don't want some notes louder, some notes softer. It's not really a dynamic instrument, so not so much. But so what I do with a bass guitar is I turn the compressor down quite a bit so that a lot of that signal is being compressed of the bass guitar coming in. And the ratio on bass guitars, I turn all the way up to either 7:1 or 14:1. So this is really going to be squashing down that signal. Basically every note he hits, that gain's going to be getting reduced a lot. Now for attack and release are the next settings here. So you understand compressor, we're setting how loud a thing has to get before it starts getting compressed. Ratio, we're setting how much it's being compressed past that point. Attack is how quickly something starts being compressed after it goes over that point. We're setting how long, how many milliseconds. Release is setting how long after it stops going past that point that the compressor shuts off. So with those things though, honestly, if you don't understand how a compressor works, this video is not going to teach you enough to do it properly. Just turn on auto compression, soft, just listen with auto on and turn off or on soft and just see what sounds better. We can learn more about that in the future. Now, the last knob here is pretty important. It's the gain knob after the compressor. Now, when this gain reduction's happening, it's actually making the whole signal quieter. Now, we previously, on the input section, set all of our input levels to the same amount, about half to two-thirds of the way up, our input levels. But now since we've compressed that signal way down, what's coming out and going to the fader is a lot quieter than the rest of the channels if we're compressing that a lot. Say it's a bass guitar or something I'm compressing a lot. So we need to compensate and add some more volume to that whole signal to bring up the whole volume, but the volume is going to be more even and consistent. Instead of sporadic being high and low volumes, it's going to be a steady volume coming out. But we need to raise that up. We do that with the gain knob. So we are going to turn that up based on looking at this gain reduction meter, how far, when that signal is being compressed, what is it coming down to on average. So that signal, if it's being, the gain reduction meter when they're playing loud, is coming down to, say, negative 15 decibels. We're going to come over on this gain level increaser over here, and we're going to turn it up to 14 or 16 decibels to add that much sound back in, so that when you're mixing, you don't have to crank that way up to the top because you're not getting enough signal because you compressed it too much. We're compensating for that and allowing you to still mix in the normal range. So that is the compressor, and then also just throw in here the limiter works like a compressor, but just at the top levels, cuts off anything that goes louder than that sharply. We talked about ratios, 7:1, 14:1. Up here it says lim, that means limiter. It just cuts off that signal once it goes past the top peak point of input levels.